Hey everyone, welcome back to Eclipse Horror Stories, the place where darkness speaks and the light never stays for long. If you love true horror stories, creepypastas, and psychological chills, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss what's coming next. Drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching from? I love seeing how far the shadows of our stories travel. Thank you for being part of the Eclipse family. Now, turn off the lights, and let's begin tonight's story.
Story 1. This happened years ago. I've never liked camping, not once. I'm just not built for it. The dirt, the bugs, the freezing nights in a sleeping bag that somehow turns into a rock by morning, it's not for me. Unfortunately, my dad was the kind of guy who lived for that stuff. Every summer, without fail, he'd drag me out into the wilderness with his friends to disconnect from the world and reconnect with nature. By the time I hit sophomore year of high school, I'd had enough. I finally convinced him to let me bring a friend along to make things less miserable. To my surprise, he agreed. So, I invited my buddy Ethan from school. You'd think bringing Ethan would make things worse since he was one of those ex-Boy Scout types who actually enjoyed camping. But he wasn't the annoying kind. He teased me for hating the outdoors, sure, but he wasn't judgmental. Plus, I figured if I had to suffer, at least I'd have someone who knew how to pitch a tent without turning it into a disaster. Ethan was excited to come, mostly because he'd take any excuse to get away from his parents back then. But the trip didn't start well. One of my dad's buddies messed up the booking, and instead of a quiet, woodsy campsite, we ended up at this overdeveloped dump called Green Ridge Family Campgrounds. It had paved paths, indoor bathrooms, and even a playground for toddlers. To make matters worse, right next to it, I'm not joking, was a mini amusement park called Riverside Funland. Ferris wheel, roller coasters, the works. It completely killed the camping vibe. My dad was furious. His friends were, too. And Ethan? He wouldn't stop saying, "This isn't real camping," like I didn't already know. It got annoying fast. Still, we were stuck there. We'd driven hours, so there was no point turning back. We set up camp, and as usual, Ethan took the lead, tying every knot perfectly, setting the tent like it came straight out of a survival guide. Even my dad, who never gave compliments unless someone was bleeding, nodded in approval. That got under my skin a bit. That night, Ethan and I shared a tent. After dinner, we snuck off under the excuse of organizing our stuff, but really, he had brought a little pipe and some weed in an old Altoids tin. Nothing crazy, just enough to make the night more tolerable. We wandered into the woods, smoked a little, laughed about school, the usual teenage stuff. When we came back, we couldn't sleep. Ethan had that mischievous grin that always meant trouble. He said, "Want to go check out the amusement park?" At first, I thought he was joking. But then I realized he was serious. And honestly, the idea of climbing a roller coaster at night sounded awesome. So around midnight, after making sure everyone was asleep, we grabbed our flashlights and snuck toward the park. The fence wasn't high, just enough for Ethan to give me a boost. Within seconds, we were inside. The place was dead quiet, just the sound of crickets and the distant hum of a generator. Occasionally, we'd see a security guard in a golf cart making rounds. We ducked behind food stands and ticket booths, whispering and laughing like idiots. It felt like we were in a stealth video game. We finally reached the main roller coaster, the Serpent, towering over everything. The maintenance stairs ran alongside the track, so we started climbing, step by step, trying not to make a sound. The higher we went, the more unreal the view got. You could see the entire park below, glowing faintly under the moonlight. We took one picture up there, just one. I still have it somewhere. After a few minutes, we decided to head back before we got caught. The climb down felt faster, easier. We were maybe 5 minutes from the fence when we froze. A guard in a golf cart was driving straight toward our path. We ducked behind a small snack shack and waited. That's when I saw something move in the dark. At first, I thought it was a shadow. But then Ethan nudged me hard and whispered, "You see that?" About 30 feet away, crouched between two buildings, was another person. They weren't moving much, just watching us. It didn't look like a kid. The worst part was that whoever it was seemed to be staring right at us. I tried to convince myself it was another security guard, but their clothes looked wrong, torn, dirty, and hanging off them. Then they suddenly bolted across the light from a nearby lamppost. That's when I saw him clearly. It was a man. His clothes were shredded, his movements jerky, unnatural, like he was injured. But what made my stomach drop was the dark streak smeared across his face. It looked like blood. Ethan saw it too. We locked eyes, both of us terrified. The man disappeared into the shadows again. When the guard finally passed, we sprinted to the fence, climbed over, and dropped down on the other side without saying a word. Neither of us laughed this time. Back in the tent, we just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what we'd seen. The only thing we could come up with was that maybe it was a homeless guy wandering around. But even then, something about that didn't sit right. The next morning started normal, breakfast, chatter, everyone getting ready for fishing. But around 10, a park staff member came by our site with an announcement. A man had been stabbed to death near Lake Darson, about 4 miles away. The suspect was still on the loose, a shirtless man in his 30s, possibly bleeding, wearing torn clothes. Ethan and I froze. We didn't say a word. We never told my dad what we saw. Not then, not ever. To this day, I don't know why. Maybe we were scared of getting in trouble. Maybe we just didn't want to admit we'd been that close to a killer. But I still think about it, about how we were only a few yards away from a murderer that night. And what could have happened if he'd seen us first. Story 2, The Clown on Birch Street Station. This happened back in October of 2016, right in the middle of that weird killer clown craze you probably remember. People everywhere were posting creepy clown sightings online, most of them fake or for attention. But what happened to me? It was real. I was 16, a junior in high school. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I had just finished my last class of the day. I said bye to my friends, threw on my headphones, and hopped on the Birch Street train line heading uptown. The car was almost empty, unusual, but not unheard of. I was in my own little world, music blasting, scrolling through chemistry flashcards on my phone. I wasn't paying attention to anything around me. Never a great idea when you're alone, but it was a familiar route. I'd done it hundreds of times. My plan was simple: hop off at 84th Street Station, walk the few blocks home, grab something to eat, and crash. Normal day. Except this one wasn't. When the train slowed at 84th, I stood up automatically, not even looking around, just muscle memory. The doors slid open, and I started walking toward them, but something blocked my way. At first, I didn't register it. Then I looked up. A man, no, a clown, was standing right in the doorway. He was wearing baggy rainbow pants, a faded yellow shirt with red suspenders, giant shoes, and white face paint smeared unevenly across his skin. Blue diamonds over his eyes, a red nose, but no wig. Just short, messy brown hair. He didn't move. Didn't talk. Just stood there, staring at me. For a few seconds, I froze. My brain couldn't even process it, it felt so surreal. This wasn't some Halloween prank. There was something off about him. Something heavy in the air. I glanced at the countdown display above the doors. 5 seconds before they'd close. I had to move. I tried to slip past him, brushing his shoulder. The second I did, he leaned down fast, almost unnaturally smooth, until our faces were level. That broke my paralysis. I bolted. The moment I ran, I heard heavy footsteps behind me. He was chasing me. I sprinted down the platform, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my music anymore. When I risked a look back, he was running too, but his movements were jerky, uncoordinated, like something was wrong with his body. And in one hand, I swear I saw the glint of a knife. I didn't stop to look again. I tore up the stairs 2 at a time, shoved through the turnstile, and burst onto the street. When I reached the surface, gasping for air, he was gone. I ran straight to the nearest coffee shop and called the police. They sent officers to check the station, but by the time they got there, the guy had vanished. The cops told me it was probably a prank, someone riding the clown hype for attention. But the look in that man's eyes, that wasn't someone looking for laughs. For days after, I couldn't shake the feeling he'd followed me. I'd jump at every noise, every passing car. I even stopped taking that train for a while. Nothing ever came of it. No arrests, no reports. But that fall, I remember seeing news stories about clown sightings popping up in nearby neighborhoods, people chased through parking lots or followed home. And I couldn't help but wonder if it was the same guy. The one who almost caught me on Birch Street Station that day. Story 3, The Pool House Shift. This isn't your typical scary story, but it's one that still keeps me up sometimes. It happened a few years after I finished college. I was still figuring out my life, bouncing between jobs, doing side gigs, trying to save a little money while I worked on my online grad courses. During that time, Indeed was basically my best friend. I'd spend hours scrolling through listings for anything that paid decently and didn't make me hate my life. One night, I stumbled on something odd, a listing for a night shift lifeguard at a hotel pool in a town about 30 minutes away called Silver Lake Heights. At first, it didn't sound that strange. But 2 details threw me off. First, the hours were completely backward. They wanted someone to supervise the pool from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., long after normal hotel pool hours. And second, the posting specifically said, applicants must not speak Spanish. That line stuck out to me like a red flag. Silver Lake Heights was a mostly Spanish-speaking community, so why would a hotel want to avoid that? It didn't make sense. Still, $30 an hour was $30 an hour. And back then, that was a dream rate. I figured I could just pretend not to know Spanish if it ever came up. I applied. And to my surprise, I got an interview that same night. Fast forward a few days, it's my first day on the job. The hotel was small but nice, kind of old-fashioned, tucked behind a strip of diners and thrift stores. When I pulled into the parking lot, this short, heavy-set guy came out to greet me. He introduced himself as Marco, the assistant manager. He was friendly, cracking jokes, and immediately put me at ease. But a minute later, a taller man turned the corner, sharp suit, serious face. He walked straight toward us without smiling. He started talking to me in Spanish. Nothing important, just small talk, the weather, where I was from. But I instantly knew what was happening. They were testing me. So I gave him a blank stare, acting confused. He watched me for a few seconds, then suddenly grinned and laughed, shaking my hand. "Relax, man. Just joking," he said. But that moment told me one thing, that job listing hadn't been a typo. The tall guy introduced himself as Luis, the general manager. He said they were trying to expand the pool's hours for new guests and wanted someone unintimidating on duty at night. Whatever that meant. He explained my tasks. Keep an eye on the pool. Collect money from visitors who weren't hotel guests. And if anything unusual happened, call him directly. Then he added one more rule: if anyone came with a blue wristband, I was to unlock the big building behind the pool, which they called the pool house. I wasn't supposed to ask questions or go inside. Just open the door. Weird, right? But at $30 an hour, I decided not to overthink it. The first few weeks went fine. The job was boring, but easy. Every now and then, a few late-night swimmers would show up. I'd take their money, let them in, and that was that. Then, one night, a bulky guy in a white shirt and sunglasses, at night, walked up and flashed a blue wristband. I unlocked the pool house, and he went inside. An hour later, he came out with a heavy-looking backpack and left without saying a word. After that, more people started coming. Some alone, some in small groups. They'd flash the wristband, disappear into the pool house for an hour or two, and leave. Meanwhile, the number of visitors using the pool skyrocketed. I was collecting way more cash than before, hundreds some nights, and half the time, people would overpay. I called Luis about it once, but he brushed it off. People make mistakes. Don't worry about it, he said, then hung up mid-conversation. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about swimming. I was sitting next to something illegal. Drug trafficking, money laundering, something big. I started noticing other clues, too. The blue wristband guys all seemed to know each other. They'd joke around, speak in fast Spanish, handshakes, cash exchanges, and all the while, I just sat there pretending not to understand a word. I probably should have quit right then. But the money was too good, and technically, I wasn't doing anything illegal. Then one night, a little boy nearly drowned in the pool. I dove in and pulled him out just in time. Turned out he was Luis's son. The next night, Luis and his men met me at the gate with glasses of wine, congratulating me for saving his kid. It was surreal, all these dangerous-looking guys laughing, toasting, clapping me on the back. But during one of their toasts, a man said something in Spanish I'll never forget. He raised his glass and said, "To all the lives we've ruined, and all the money still coming in." Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. That's when I knew I had to get out. The next afternoon, I was sitting in my lifeguard chair when my phone rang. It was my mom. She only spoke Spanish, so I switched languages while talking to her, trying to keep my voice down. When I hung up and turned around, Marco was standing there. Just staring. He asked, coldly, "Since when do you speak Spanish?" My heart dropped. I tried to play it off, said I was just learning a few words from a friend. But he didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. He paused for a few seconds, then nodded slowly and said, "All right. Come early tomorrow. We'll talk about a new opportunity." Then he handed me a tip, a few $100s, and walked away. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I packed up every belonging I had and never went back to that hotel. For weeks afterward, I was paranoid. Every time a black SUV drove by or a strange car parked near my house, I'd panic. I kept imagining that new opportunity was going to involve a shallow grave somewhere off the highway. I never heard from Luis or Marco again. I even checked the job listing later, gone. The hotel's website disappeared a few months later, too. To this day, I still wonder what was really happening in that pool house, and how close I came to finding out the hard way.